Lady K, and I'm going to keep calling you Lady K because to me that is a form of respect because we've
Oh,
known each other for a
I
long time.
know.
And I am so glad because the last time we did an interview was over the phone, and that was a couple of years ago, and I think it was just before COVID too. So I'm just glad to have a chance to speak with you, and I get to see you because you have been doing a hell of a lot. We got to get through a lot of things before we get
Yep.
into the new music. How are you, and what part of the world are you in right now?
I'm in Los Angeles. I'm amazing. I'm also exhausted because like you said, I've been doing a lot and I kind of took on a lot myself to make this all happen. So good, tired, excited, all the things that go along with sort of getting your passion out into the world. That's what's going on right now.
Well, how was Switzerland? I think it was Switzerland that you were living
Norway,
in. Was
Norway.
Norway? How was Norway, and how long were you living there for?
I was there for just over 5 months, actually. It was amazing. I almost didn't come back, honestly.
Wow. Why
It
did
was
you make the move?
um you know what? I'm coming out of this long stretch of healing from my car crash that I was in. And it was quite a brutal healing process. And when I came back into the world as this sort of new version of myself, I actually didn't have time to process a lot that I had been through. So there was just this weird period of processing that I needed to kind of go through and detach from everything to kind of reconnect. So I was struggling because I had really found my sound, but I didn't really know how I wanted to go out with the visuals and how I wanted to be as a performer. A lot of that I had to connect with who I really was. And I had been recovering for so long, I didn't have a chance to really feel myself out there in the world. So I kind of just went to Norway and I gave my energy to other people instead of myself for a little bit. And I started mentoring in a school out there and I lived in a cabin with no Wi-Fi. And I honestly, it was the best thing I ever did. And I was very lucky that this opportunity came up to even do this at all. And yeah, I mean, the simple life, just peaceful life in a small town in a cabin, I could have done that forever, but I have a lot more to give. And I realized that when I was there, I realized that I'm not ready to kind of pack my bags and go live in the woods yet. And I have some big stuff ready to come, like still in me. And so while I was there, I was able to sort of connect deeply with myself. And I realized like, I want to go big. I love narrative. I love stories. I love art. I just didn't want to limit myself anymore. And the music industry, I think any industry nowadays makes you feel like you have to box yourself in and pick a lane and then stick with that. And that's your brand. And, I've had this sort of I've had this experience with my own mortality where I could have died in that car crash. So I have this new sense of wow, life could end any day now, and that really does wake you up. And I just realized that what, I want to just have fun with this. So that's why I don't know if you've been paying attention. And I'm editing everything myself, and I didn't realize how much work that was going to be because I'm editing all the music videos. I don't know if you've seen the radio theater plays.
Yeah.
So I'm literally I have to put one out in 2 days and I'm still editing it.
Wow.
I'm like in between interviews, I'm like editing. So
That's amazing. That's amazing. I
yeah,
don't want you to have to relive it, but what happened with this car crash? Because before that, and I want to talk about that too, because you were going on a big tour also with a huge artist, and I'm going to get to that in a second. But what happened with this accident?
I was in an Uber, so I was sitting in the back seat. It was one of those weird days when I usually sit on the right side, and I had this gut feeling, and I sat on the left side, and thank God I did because a cab ran a red light and T-boned us on the right side. So had I been sitting on the other side of the car, it might not have gone so well.
Oh,
So yeah, I sustained a brain injury that it's taken me 6 years, almost 7 years to get to where I am now. And that was really at the peak of where I was at in my career at the time. I was just sort of breaking it as a headlining act in festivals
yeah.
when I was like, oh, everything was like, you invest in yourself a lot and it's finally you see the momentum kind of unfold. And I was just at that unfolding point, and that's when it happened. So psychologically it was such a hard thing to go through. having worked so hard to get to where I was, and then finding myself injured in bed, unable to even get out of bed. That was quite a process. But honestly, I didn't see silver linings for years. Now I'm seeing some silver linings and just growth that I went through as a person, that I would never face that certain sides of myself had I not been forced into it.
Amen.
So yeah, it's so easy to run away from ourselves, and I had no choice. I was just stuck with myself in bed for so long. So I definitely, I've grown immensely, and I think a lot about how I would love to give that growth to others without having to go through what I went through, with all the pain and, you know, the existential crisis of losing myself and having to rediscover who I am,
Let's go
rebuild everything. Yeah.
let's go back to what you were just saying too, because you were literally back to headlining. And like I said, you were sharing the stage with a lot of big artists at the same time too.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, when they say when things go up too fast, they come down just as fast. It's kind of like life was just dangling a carrot, like, here's everything, and then it just took it all away. And yeah, it can drive you crazy. You have to. It's like when they say don't get attached to anything. Well, you can get attached to yourself in this image that you kind of latched onto. Like me as this big immortal performer who never gets injured, who can. I had energy. I could go all day. Like I could.
Mm.
I did 5 shows in 5 days in 5 countries on one stretch. Like I could not do that now. But then I realized that that was also out of balance, and it could only sustain itself probably for so long. So I learned to say no, and I've learned to step back. I've learned to smell the flowers and, relax. And honestly, I've also learned that if things don't go the way I plan, that's okay. That whatever unfolds is okay. So
You,
it's made life a lot more peaceful.
the other thing that I was enjoying what you were doing was it wasn't just your music that was art. You made yourself head to toe art every time that you posted, whether it be fashion, whether it be the way you pose, the way the things you did. What was that like for you back then to do that? Because that's something that a lot of people can't pull that off, but you did in so many amazing ways. It's not just how you posed your body, it was the way you took the photos. I mean, of course, it was black and white, color, shadows, things like that. Can you talk a little bit about that, please?
That honestly is just me. And that side of me is now coming back again. Now that I have energy, like you're going to start seeing these weird photos. And I really am an artist, not just with music, with my whole life. Like I paint, and I write stories and poetry, and I hang out with very eccentric people, and I love fashion, and I love changing my outfit and becoming a different person. So that's really just who I am. And just depending on what mood I wake up at that day, like you're gonna get a totally different side of me. Um, yeah. So I love self-expression in every form, and I love when it all comes together.
So let's take all of these elements that we just talked about. We put it all together. How does all this represent now going into the new music that we're going to be talking about?
The new music is actually for me very special, because despite as authentic as I was back in that whole era, I was very calculated and branded. I was like only wearing Reebok shoes and had one hairdo, and like it works. I'm not gonna lie, like that does work, because people, they can latch onto it really quickly, and they're like, this is who you are, and
Yeah.
it's really simple, and people like that because it feels safe. But I have this whole side of me. I was a songwriter before Hideaway ever blew up, and I was a folk singer before I ever became a songwriter. So I have this whole journey of music that led me to becoming that person that everyone saw, which was this tiny little window. It was like a little window, authentic window, but it was just a tiny bit of the whole picture. And when I was in the crash, it really dawned on me that I hadn't put a whole expression of myself out in the world, because I was so fixated on honestly playing the game. And there's this game that we play with art, with industry coming together, and you can play it, but it is at the expense of your soul to a bit, to a level. and you don't always get the full picture of who that person is, and it's in exchange for perceived success. And I do believe that just being fully authentic is what actually will ultimately create something much more magnificent, whatever it ends up being. But you just have to trust. You have to trust in nature and trust in your own unfolding and trust in the fact that you can't control when things happen and how they happen. And you can't control what they look like. Like I would have the whole vision in my head and I'd carve it out and and then it would, you know, come out as planned. Now things are very much part of the planning is not planning. Honestly, it's letting instinct come, letting my intuition drive things, letting things unfold, seeing who we bump into. Like if you watch the music videos, it's a story, and the story is not something we sat and wrote before. It's literally writing itself as we go. So there's another music video coming, and we're still like, what is it? The story hasn't presented itself, and little things have come up. But I always wanted to do a movie that writes itself. And it's funny, it's something I always wanted to do. I never planned it, and it just started happening with this album and literally dancing and crying. Have you seen that music video?
Yes.
The one where I'm crying at the bar? That happened because I was waiting for my visa in Norway and Canada, and I told my friend I needed to crash at his house for like a week. And they took my passport, and then because of COVID, even though it was sort of post-COVID, the government was slow. So it ended up being a month and a half that I had to wait to get my passport back. And I couldn't
Wow.
travel. So I'm like literally way overstaying my visit. But it was okay. And one day when I was hanging out with my friend, his name is Ben. He runs a museum in Toronto, which you must go to. I saw a camera in his house, so I was like, "Are you a photographer?" And he's like, "No, but I have a great camera and it takes great shots." So I was like, "Let's just do a photo shoot for fun." And he had a friend who's a vintage collector for men, and so he's like, "Let's get my friends to bring out some costumes." And he had a museum and a like little venue downstairs. So I was like, "Let's use the venue." And then so we all show up, and our friend Kingpin, he's actually his character is in the video or the music videos. He shows up and invites his brother Gregor, who unannounced shows up with an entire movie set of lighting and just starts setting up a movie set. So I'm like looking at this set, like we're doing a photo shoot. So it starts as a photo shoot, and then an hour in, I'm like looking at Gregor, like, "Hey, so you're like a DP. He's the DP for the Umbrella Academy and a bunch of big shows in Toronto." I'm like, "So you're a DP, and we got a film set. Should we film a music video?" And he's like, you know, how like people with their crafts, he's like, "No, because the camera isn't right." And he's like, "It's a photography camera." And I was like, "But it does roll. It does do video, right?" And he was like, "Yeah, but I have a small memory card." So I was like, "How many takes can it do?" And he's like, "Probably 3 max." So I was like, "Gregor, roll camera." And we did that whole video was just 3 improvised takes. So that night I edited everything together, and we had so much fun doing that. I texted everyone. I sent this demo of the video, and everyone was like, "Wow, this is amazing." But Gregor had missed the video. None of us realized that. He didn't see it in the text. So we're like, "We should do this again." And he's like, "Let's do it again. Let's go Monday." We show up. My friend owns a museum. So we're like, "Well, why don't we do a museum heist?" So the second video was I Go Dance. So
Mhm.
we kind of looked at the characters and we're like, "Well, how about we make characters out of these people we just dressed up as for fun, playing dress up?" And then we made a story out of it. It turned into this like Indiana Jones style story of us robbing a museum. And then we went back. Oh, yeah, on the set, as we're like halfway done the video, he's just like, "Yeah." Gregor's like, "Yeah, I'm thinking about how this, like, what is this connects to?" And we're like, "Gregor, it connects to the video that I said yesterday." And he's like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "You didn't see it?" Yeah, he's like, "No." And I was like, "How come you're here if you didn't see it?" He's like, "I just had so much fun that I wanted to do it again."
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, so it's just literally that's the vibe of this whole project. It's just us having like tons of fun, and everyone's hauling ass because we're just loving every minute of it. But it's a lot of hard work. Like now that the story is unfolding, it's becoming its own universe. Like we started just doing radio podcasts because my friend who's a voiceover actor was just like, yeah, I need more work. And I was like, okay, I'll hire you. Let's do a radio show. And so we're just kind of doing voiceovers together. And then now we're just like, well, this is like a movie script we have. So who knows where this is gonna go? But none of us have planned anything. It's the most unplanned project in the world. And so
And
it's honestly, but the best part about it is that's literally that's the laws of nature. Like you go with the flow, you be a feather, you blow with the wind, and then you just kind of set your course more on how you want to feel and like how you want the experience to feel with the people in your lives. And that's been the focus of this whole project is just everyone is having the time of their lives the whole time, as much as we can. And so, yeah, now I have people coming to me like, when are we doing the next one? So that's just very different. And we've been able to do more because people, are people want to be on the set. They're not just there because they're getting paid. They're there because they literally want to be there. And it just changes the whole energy of the whole project. So I really do encourage people to listen to the radio theater show. This next episode I need to get out by Thursday, and we accidentally made it like way too long. So I'm like editing. I'm like, how long is this episode? So I'm gonna be up till probably 4 a.m. finishing this. But it's really funny because we're on like an adventure. We got the treasure map, and this is about us getting to Wyoming, which is the next music video that's coming out Friday, is when we arrive in Wyoming. So this one is us following this treasure map to get to where this next video picks up.
I love it. I love it. No,
Yeah.
it's an odyssey is what we're following along here. When is the album? I do believe the album comes out in May, I do believe. Am I wrong?
Yeah, it's May. So there's 6 songs. So I'm doing volumes, and
Okay.
the reason I'm doing volumes is because this concept has just begun.
Mm-hmm.
And the sound that I've found, and you're gonna hear the shift now. Have you heard the next single?
No, not yet.
Okay, so this is actually where you're gonna now hear the folk that I was talking about from my past coming in and merging with the house music for the first time.
Okay. That'd be
Yes,
interesting.
so I warmed it up with like 3 songs. They all go together. They're all very much part of the same vision, but the next 3 songs are gonna be this mesh of basically you're gonna get a whole picture of who I am, and very big vocals, and it's storytelling. I have to also shout out Clay. So I dinosaur dig as well with my friend Ben. It's like a weird hobby I picked up by knowing the right people. And so we go dinosaur digging in Wyoming, and we had an Airbnb host named Clay, and he's this like amazing cowboy. He's like in his 70s, and he's a historian. So he basically studies all the lives of the outlaws that used to roam those lands, and he would walk us through the land and show us their cabins and tell us all these amazing stories. And I was so inspired that I had him recite one of his poems on this next song. And then it's written with the stories that he told us on our dinosaur digging adventure. It's written with him in mind, and the sort of passion that he had for storytelling. So the mysterious disappearance of Etta Place is about a real female outlaw who dated the Sundance Kid who used to rob banks with Butch Cassidy. And when they got shot dead, Etta Place vanished and no one ever saw her again. And everyone's like, what happened to her? And I'm like, dude, they just robbed 5 banks. I'm guessing she ran with the money. So it's kind of like my version of what happened. And it's just this idea of this woman like running away with gold and just starting life. So I kind of like, yeah, it's like that there's a lot of, if you really pay attention to the lyrics on this project, there's a lot of sort of battling with the concept of life and death. And I think that's because of what I went through. It really comes up a lot. But oh yeah, like and trust me, like there's many volumes to this project. So I didn't want to put a cap on it because I just begun finding this sound. That's why it's going to be volume. So I could, go away, put out another EP, and then come back to Dancing and Crying for volume 3, and then go away for 5 years and come back for volume 5 or whatever, like it can keep going forever, quite frankly. So, or it might end, who knows? But there's no, an album's like, it has a beginning and an end. This has a beginning and no end so far.
What are you hoping fans are going to get from this music experience?
They're going to get a lot more of the creative, playful sort of my true and full personality. I'm a hardworking like businesswoman behind the scenes. I am a fully eccentric artist who sometimes gets, throws on overalls and covered in paint head to toe. And then sometimes I want to just act in a movie. So you're just, it's not just about the music. It's really a whole expression. And I think it's fun. I think they're gonna have a lot of fun with this. I think if they do pay attention and dive into all the content and sit with the characters, I think they're gonna fall in love with them. And it's just a journey. It's really an adventure that they have to go on that has many layers and many elements, and kind of just gonna keep growing from here. So it's
You know,
really fun.
usually, and this is probably gonna be the one of the last questions. Usually, I would ask somebody if you could go back in time when you were young, what advice would you give yourself? This time, I'm going to ask if you could go back before the accident, what advice would you give yourself then to what you know and experience now?
Um, Not to take myself so seriously. It honestly, when you get success, when it hits you, you kind of want to cling to it, and you think that, okay, I have to cling to the success, and I have to build on this, and sometimes you're not actually enjoying yourself.
Yeah.
The amount that I was working was really unhealthy, so I think my life was really out of balance. So I would just tell myself to not worry about saying no, and to focus on balance in my life as opposed to getting every opportunity that comes my way, and to make sure that I'm actually enjoying the process and making time for people. My social life was just non-existent at the time, and that is the best part of life, is spending time with the people you love. So yeah, just honestly, the word that runs my life now is balance. It really, when you apply balance to every aspect of your life, your life just gets infinitely better.
I love it.
So
I love it. Are we going to see you on stage at some point in 2024?
yes, yeah, we're planning that now. So we haven't announced anything yet,
Yeah,
but absolutely. And I'm going to be doing some festivals in the summer.
great.
Yeah, so I'm definitely going to get back on stage, and I can't wait for that. And there's going to be different styles of shows because I have some concepts in mind, and I've tested one of them and it went really, really well. So again, just fun. Just seeing how even with the live shows we can get really creative and
Okay.
independent as well. When you're independent, you're working on smaller budgets and stuff like that, so you have to get more creative. So the Hideaway was literally a spawn of creativity. It was just, there was very little budget, and I was hustling the streets in New York, pulled my friends out.
And still,
Who's in town?
it's
Who's in town on this day?
still considered one of the greatest music videos ever made by a Canadian of all time. So be very, very proud of it. People knew what you did to make that happen and how it was recorded. They bow to you every second. Before we wrap it up, one question I've been asking a lot of artists, because we are going into the spring summer season, 9 times out of 10, most artists are actually recording Christmas songs or holiday songs. Is there a
Yeah.
chance that you could be recording a holiday song that we could be getting in November, December? Are you at least even thinking about it?
I'm thinking about it. I put one out like really last minute last year, Christmas
Yeah.
Without You. So I'm like, should I keep pushing that one because we put it up pretty late, or do I write another one? I don't know. I actually went on this amazing train Christmas tour. I don't know if you noticed that on my socials, but I toured on a train. We did like 56 shows in a very small amount of time. I had like 2 weeks. So, and I loved it. I loved every minute of it. So if I do go back on the train, I probably will write another Christmas song to go with it. So
Okay,
we'll see.
fantastic.
I love writing holiday music because it's so it can be so cheesy, and you can get away with that.
But I
Where
always
you
give
can't.
respect.
Yeah.
I always give respect to artists like yourselves because you have to write this in, usually the best time to write it is in the summer. So you have to use your imagination to the max when you got a beachfront happening, but you got to
Yeah.
think of snow, candy canes, and the jolly old elf flying over your
Yeah.
house.
It's true. It's true. But you know what? I've lived in Canada. I grew up in Canada my whole life, so
Yeah.
imagining snow is not hard.
No,
I
no,
had
no.
I had enough snow for a lifetime of
There we
imagining.
go.
Yeah.
Anyways, gonna wrap this up. I want to say congratulations. So glad. I love seeing that smile on your face.
Oh,
And
thank you.
it brings me joy to see that. And the fact that you are enjoying yourself in this business, you're enjoying life, especially because we almost lost you. So
Oh,
congrats with the new music, congrats with this new approach, congrats on everything. And cross fingers at some point in 2024 I get to see you in person. Always big love.
yes. Well, let's hang out.